Hello and welcome back. I'm Joseph Hoffman. Today we're going to be reviewing flats and sharps and learning a new pentascale, C sharp minor. Let's come to the piano to get started. Do you remember what a sharp does to a note? A sharp raises any note up by 1/2 step, which means the nearest possible note to the right, or one note up. Did I already tell you my trick for remembering what a sharp does? If you get poked with something sharp, ow, it makes you jump up. Let's practice finding some sharps in a few different places. Here's G, point to G sharp. If you're pointing right here, you're correct. Here is D, point to D sharp. If you're pointing right here, you're correct. Now here's a tricky one. Here's E, point to E sharp. Aha, there's no black key to the right of E, so E sharp is actually a white key. This is E sharp. Or you could also say F. Now let's play a game. I'll show you a note on the staff here, and your job is to find it and point to it on your screen here with the piano keys. So this one's for practice. If you see a D sharp, can you point to that on the piano keys? In 3 seconds, the correct answer will appear. The correct answer is right here, D sharp. Now let's try another one. Okay, here's your next one to solve. Can you find this note on the piano keys and point to it? The correct answer will appear in 3 seconds. If you pointed here to G sharp, you're correct. Remember, here's G, so G sharp would be 1/2 step to the right. Let's try another one. Can you find this note on the piano? Point to it. If you're pointing right here to F sharp, you're correct. Let's try one more. Where would this note be on the piano? If you're pointing right here to A sharp, you're correct. Now let's talk about flats. A flat does the opposite of a sharp. A flat lowers any note by 1/2 step. So this was B, here's B flat. My trick for remembering what a flat does is to think about getting a flat tire. It makes your car sink down. Let's practice finding some other flats on the piano. Here's A. Can you point to A flat? That's correct. It's right here. Here is G. Point to G flat. If you're pointing right here, you're correct. Here is C. Can you find C flat? If you're pointing right here, you're correct. It's another white key flat. Here's D. Can you point to D flat? If you're pointing right here, you're correct. Let's try our game again, this time with flats. Can you find this note and point to it on your piano keys on your screen? If you're pointing right here to E flat, you're correct. Let's try another one. Where would this note be on your keys? If you're pointing right here, you're correct. It's G flat. Let's try another one. Where would this note be on the keys? If you're pointing here to D flat, you're correct. Now let's try a sharp again. Can you find a C sharp on your piano keys? If you're pointing right here, you're correct. Hey, wait a minute. This was the same key you pointed for D flat. Interesting. This helps us see that every black key actually has 2 different names. We could call this key C sharp or D flat. That's the same with people too, I suppose. I'm sometimes called Mr. Hoffman, and I'm sometimes called Joseph. It all depends on the situation. The same goes for keys on the piano. Depending on the situation, we could call this key D flat. But in another situation, it may actually be better to call it C sharp. Maybe it's kind of like a superhero's secret identity. Mild-mannered D flat by day becomes crime-fighting C sharp by night. Different names, but it's really the same note. In music, the two different names for the same note are called enharmonic. So we could say that C sharp and D flat are enharmonic. Let's look at some other examples. Let's see if we can figure out the two different names for this black key. Can you tell me its sharp name? That's right, it could be D sharp, or what could its flat name be? That's right, we could call it E flat. So D sharp's secret identity is E flat. Let's try one more. What are the two names for this black key? If you said F sharp and G flat, you're correct. F sharp and G flat are also enharmonic. They look different, but they're the same key. And what would be enharmonic to G sharp? The answer is A flat. Two different names for the same note. Did you know white keys can have enharmonics too? Let's find this note on the piano. That's right, it's an E. What if we wanted to make E sharp? Since there's no black key a half step above, E sharp is the same as F. Or another way to say that, E sharp is enharmonic with F. Now it also works the other way. What if we had or wanted F flat? Here's F. F flat is a half step down. So F flat is enharmonic with E. We could say F flat equals E. It's really the same key, just two different ways of saying it. Now let's apply this to the D flat major pentascale. I mentioned that we choose whether to call a note by its flat name or its sharp name based on the situation. Well, one of those situations is when you have a scale like this. We could name the 5 notes of the D flat major pentascale like this: D flat, D sharp, F, F sharp, A flat. And that would be correct, technically speaking. However, it kind of looks messy, and it doesn't really follow the flow of the musical alphabet. In general, when you have a scale, it's best to use each letter of the musical alphabet just once and in order. That usually works out best if you stick with all sharps or all flats. So let's change that D sharp to an E flat. And then let's change this F sharp to a G flat. Enharmonically the same, but now we can spell everything each with its own letter, D, E, F, G, A, and with all flats, D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat. But what if we instead wanted to call all 5 of these notes by their sharp names? Is that possible? Absolutely. We would change D flat to C sharp, E flat to D sharp, F to E sharp, G flat to F sharp, and A flat to G sharp. Now we've spelled the exact same 5 notes, this time using sharp names. Can you point to each note with me of the pentascale and say their names with sharps? Ready, go. C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp. Good job. Now let's try pointing and naming each one with flat names. Ready, go. D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat. Okay, now let's take the D flat major pentascale and turn it into D flat minor. Do you remember how to do that? To turn a major pentascale minor, you just take the 3rd note and lower it a half step. So this F will become F flat. So now what would we have? Let's name them. D flat, E flat, F flat, G flat, A flat. Okay, now we have it spelled as C sharp minor. Let's point to each note and name them with their sharp names. Go. C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp. Okay, let's try our stepping and skipping exercise in the C sharp minor pentascale. Remember, that will go like this. Stepping up and stepping down and skipping up and down. Then we play the 1 chord, the 5-7 chord, then the 1 chord. So remember, the 5-7 chord, our finger 1 is going to move down a half step, and then mi, or I should say may, since we're in minor, goes up to fa, which is here on the G or the F sharp or G flat, either one, and then back to the 1 chord. Let's try that together now. Ready, go. Stepping up and stepping down and skipping up and down. Now I play the 1 chord. Now find the 5-7 chord, then back to the 1 chord. Good. Now let's try the left hand. Cover up the C sharp minor pentascale with your left hand. Same thing, stepping and skipping. Ready, go. Stepping up and stepping down and skipping up and down. The 1 chord. Find the 5-7 chord. Then back to the 1 chord. Good. Now let's try both hands at the same time. Similar motion. Ready, go. Stepping up and stepping down and skipping up and down. The 1 chord. The 5-7 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Good. Now if you couldn't keep up with that, press pause and practice it on your own. Then you can go back and try it with me again. For an extra challenge, let's try contrary motion. Remember, now we're going to start on our finger 1s, and our fingers are going to go in opposite directions. Contrary motion, ready, go. Stepping out and stepping in and skipping out and in. Chord. Let's try that one more time, this time with a staccato articulation. Remember, for staccato, your wrist is going to lift up with each note. Ready, go. Stepping out and stepping in and skipping out and in. Chord. Good. If any of these are too hard, that's fine. Just practice it and then try it with me again when you're ready. Great job today learning about enharmonics and the C sharp minor pentascale. Or I could say D flat, but be sure not to reveal his secret identity to the enemy. For practice this week, I'd like you to play stepping and skipping in C sharp major and minor. Try it hands together in similar and contrary motion, using staccato and legato articulation. As always, thanks for watching and see you next time. Hey, Chef, I've got one for you. Okay. Why did the D flat start wearing glasses? I don't know. Because he wanted to C sharp. Good one.